act like an angel and dress like crazy. SSERAFIM is one of the most consistently strong groups in modern K-pop, built on a clear identity that blends confidence, sharp performance, and a polished but aggressive sound. Their music stands out for its energy and direction, from bold title tracks to more experimental B-sides that still feel cohesive within their concept. Beyond the songs themselves, their choreography and stage presence add a level of intensity that makes their performances feel deliberate rather than routine, with every comeback reinforcing their image instead of drifting away from it. They have managed to carve out a recognizable style in a crowded industry, and their discography continues to show steady growth and refinement rather than repetition. SSERAFIM take their name from the word seraphim, a reference to the highest order of angelic beings, which fits their overall concept of confidence, resilience, and ambition. The idea behind the name reflects a sense of rising above pressure and expectation, almost like transforming challenges into strength. It also ties into their branding of self-belief and forward momentum, where their identity is built around pushing past doubt and performing with a controlled, almost fearless energy that matches the imagery their name suggests. My favorite songs from SSERAFIM would have to be either Easy or Unforgiven. Both tracks are strong examples of their sound, but in different ways. Easy feels more restrained and atmospheric, built around a smooth, controlled intensity that leans into mood and confidence without over-explaining itself. Unforgiven is more direct and aggressive, with a sharper edge and a sense of defiance that matches the group's identity really well. Together, they show how versatile their discography can be while still staying consistent in concept and execution. My bias in SSERAFIM is Kim Chae-won. She not only stands out for her vocals and stage presence, but also for the way she carries herself as a leader in performances and group dynamics. There is a noticeable control and precision in how she performs, where nothing feels exaggerated but everything still lands with impact. Her consistency across concepts makes her easy to recognize, and she brings a grounded energy to the group that balances their more intense and experimental moments. She feels like someone who anchors the group without overshadowing it, which is part of what makes her so compelling to watch. Another reason SSERAFIM stands out is their willingness to take creative risks in their discography, particularly in how they structure their songs and approach hooks. Instead of relying on the standard verse, pre-chorus, chorus formula that dominates mainstream pop, they often experiment with abrupt transitions, stripped-down sections, or shifts in rhythm that disrupt expectations. This can make their tracks feel less immediately predictable, but it also gives them a stronger sense of identity because the songs are built around mood and momentum rather than repetition alone. Their hooks also tend to avoid traditional melodic payoff in favor of rhythmic or chant-like delivery, where the impact comes from energy and attitude rather than purely catchy melody lines. That choice creates a more performance-driven sound, where the chorus is designed to hit harder on stage with choreography rather than just in audio form. In some cases, they also lean into minimalism in the instrumental during key moments, which forces attention onto vocal texture, cadence, and timing instead of layered production. This approach makes their music more polarizing on first listen, but it also increases replay value for listeners who adjust to the structure over time. The unconventional design means the songs are often remembered for their shape and progression rather than a single melodic peak, which helps separate them from more formulaic releases in the genre. They also have strong performance, cohesion as a unit. Instead of relying on individual highlight moments where one member breaks away for a solo focus, their choreography is structured around group synchronization, layered formations, and continuous collective movement. This creates a performance style where the visual impact comes from the group acting as a single coordinated system rather than a sequence of separate showcases. A lot of their choreographies emphasize geometric staging and clean transitions, where members shift positions in ways that feel precise and controlled rather than decorative. That makes even relatively simple movements feel more impactful because the emphasis is on timing and alignment. Small variations in spacing, direction changes, and level shifts are often used to maintain visual tension throughout the performance, so there is rarely a moment where the stage feels static. This also affects how their energy is perceived live. Because the choreography depends heavily on group timing, the execution tends to feel disciplined and rehearsed in a way that reinforces consistency across performances. Even when individual members have distinct roles within a formation, those roles usually serve the structure of the group rather than standing apart from it. The result is a stage presence that feels unified and intentionally engineered for cohesion rather than individual spotlight distribution. Their visual storytelling across eras is also fairly consistent. Even when the concepts shift, there is usually a clear through line in styling choices, color palettes, and overall creative direction that keeps their identity recognizable from one comeback to the next. Rather than completely reinventing themselves each era, they tend to evolve their aesthetic in controlled steps, which makes the transitions feel intentional instead of abrupt. This is especially noticeable in how their album visuals and promotional materials often share thematic continuity, whether through fashion silhouettes, recurring symbolic imagery, or a consistent tone in photo shoots and teasers. Even when the mood changes from more elegant to more aggressive or experimental, the underlying presentation still feels connected to a broader brand identity. As a result, their releases can feel like interconnected chapters rather than isolated concepts. Each comeback builds on the emotional or stylistic ideas of the previous one, giving the impression of an ongoing narrative rather than a reset. This kind of consistency helps reinforce their image over time, since the audience can trace development and progression instead of treating each era as a standalone shift with no clear link to what came before. Another factor is their ability to maintain intensity across live performances. They consistently sustain a high level of energy even through demanding choreographies, where the pacing, stamina requirements, and synchronized movements leave little room for noticeable drop-off. What stands out is not just individual effort, but how evenly that energy is distributed across the group, so the performance does not rely on one or two members carrying the stage while others recover. This creates a sense that their performances are built with live execution in mind rather than being adapted from studio recordings. Movements are often large, deliberate, and physically demanding, which means the choreography itself reinforces the song's intensity rather than just illustrating it. Even during rapid transitions or high-output sections, they tend to maintain clarity in timing and formation, which keeps the performance visually controlled instead of chaotic. It also contributes to a stronger sense of immersion for the audience. Because the intensity is sustained rather than fluctuating, the performance feels continuous and purposeful from start to finish. That consistency helps reinforce the idea that their concept is not just about music videos or recorded tracks, but about how the songs function in a live environment where endurance and precision matter at the same time. They also benefit from a strong production direction that avoids oversaturation. Their releases tend to be relatively focused in terms of track count per era, which makes each song feel more deliberate and less like filler added to meet volume expectations. This tighter curation gives the impression that every track is chosen to serve a specific role within the overall concept, whether that is reinforcing the main theme of the comeback or expanding it in a slightly different direction. Because of this, individual songs tend to stand out more clearly on their own. There is less risk of the listening experience becoming repetitive or blurred together, since each track usually introduces a distinct texture, mood, or rhythmic approach. That variation helps maintain attention across the entire release while still preserving a coherent identity for the project as a whole. It also contributes to a stronger perception of quality control. Rather than aiming for quantity or long track lists, the focus feels more centered on refining a smaller set of songs to match the group's concept and performance style. This approach makes the overall discography feel more intentional, as if each era is designed with a specific narrative and sonic boundary instead of being expanded for commercial padding. Comparing SSERAFIM to Sword Art Online is really a contrast between two completely different types of media, but in terms of execution and consistency, SSERAFIM operates on a much stronger and more deliberate creative foundation. Their work shows clear direction in music, performance, and visual identity, with each release building on a defined concept and maintaining cohesion across eras. Sword Art Online, on the other hand, struggles with uneven storytelling and inconsistent use of its core premise. It introduces a strong concept but does not always follow through on the tension, stakes, or world building in a way that feels fully developed or sustained. As a result, its narrative impact often feels diluted compared to what the premise initially promises. The comparison ultimately comes down to execution and intent. SSERAFIM consistently delivers structured, purpose-driven artistic output where each element serves a clear role in the group's identity. Sword Art Online presents an interesting idea but frequently falls short in maintaining that same level of coherence and payoff across its story arcs. Sword Art Online is often criticized for having weak, inconsistent writing and poorly developed characters. The story repeatedly introduces high-stakes ideas, especially early on with its death game premise, but fails to properly follow through on the tension it creates. Major plot points tend to resolve too quickly or too conveniently, which reduces the sense of danger and undermines the setup the series relies on. The characters also suffer from a lack of meaningful development. Many of them are introduced with interesting potential but are quickly sidelined or reduced to simple roles that do not evolve in a substantial way over time. Even the central cast often falls into predictable patterns, with limited emotional growth or complexity beyond their initial characterization. This makes it difficult for the audience to stay invested in their arcs, since they rarely change in ways that feel earned or impactful. As a result, the writing can feel more focused on moving from one set piece to another rather than building a coherent narrative with consistent stakes and character progression. The overall effect is a story that looks ambitious on the surface but struggles to deliver depth or payoff in execution. The pacing in Sword Art Online is a mess, especially in how it handles moments that should feel weighty or emotionally significant. It repeatedly rushes through important developments that need more time to breathe, which weakens the impact of its strongest ideas. Instead of allowing tension to build naturally, key arcs often accelerate straight to resolution, skipping over the slower character work and world building that would have made those moments feel earned. This creates a structural imbalance where the story jumps between major events without properly transitioning between them. Emotional beats that should land with force tend to feel compressed or underdeveloped, because the narrative does not consistently invest enough time in setup or aftermath. As a result, the flow of the series can feel uneven, with sudden shifts in focus that make the overall progression feel disjointed. The end result is a story that often feels like it is prioritizing plot progression over narrative depth. Important events happen, but the lack of sustained pacing around them reduces their long-term impact and makes the overall structure feel rushed rather than carefully constructed. Sword Art Online had a genuinely strong premise, but it largely wastes that potential in execution. The idea of players being trapped in a death game inside a virtual world sets up immediate tension, psychological pressure, and long-term stakes that could have driven a deeply focused survival story. It is the kind of concept that naturally lends itself to slow-building dread, character-driven decision-making, and consequences that permanently reshape the world and cast. Instead, the series often moves away from that core idea relatively quickly and shifts into more conventional fantasy storytelling. As a result, the original premise that made the setting so compelling becomes more of a starting hook than an ongoing foundation. The most interesting implications of the death game structure are not consistently explored in depth, especially in terms of long-term survival dynamics, moral breakdown, and the social consequences of a locked virtual society. Because of that, the story can feel like it abandons its own strongest concept before fully exhausting it. What remains is a series that still has moments of appeal, but does not fully commit to or capitalize on the premise that initially set it apart. This anime should have been an easy slam dunk that most people could enjoy, but instead it consistently fumbles the fundamentals that made its premise so promising. On paper, it has everything going for it: a high-stakes death game setting, immediate tension, and a built-in framework for survival drama with lasting consequences. It is the kind of concept that should naturally translate into gripping storytelling with strong character development and sustained suspense. Instead, the execution often undercuts those strengths. The narrative frequently loses focus on what made the setup compelling in the first place, shifting into more conventional storytelling that does not fully take advantage of the psychological or systemic implications of its world. Key ideas are introduced but not explored to their full depth, and moments that should carry significant weight are sometimes resolved too quickly or without enough buildup. As a result, what could have been a defining entry in the survival genre ends up feeling uneven and underdeveloped in practice. The potential is obvious throughout, which makes the shortcomings more noticeable, since the gap between what it could have been and what it actually delivers remains consistently wide. Sword Art Online is often criticized for how it portrays online gaming, and part of that criticism comes from how disconnected it feels from the realities of actual MMO or online game design. The mechanics of its world are frequently simplified or inconsistent in ways that do not reflect how online systems, player behavior, or game balance typically work. As a result, it can feel less like a grounded interpretation of a virtual world and more like a narrative convenience built around high-stakes drama. From a design perspective, many of the rules governing the death game are not explored with much depth or internal consistency. Systems that would normally shape player interaction, progression, or long-term survival dynamics are either underdeveloped or adjusted to serve immediate plot needs. This creates a version of an online game world that often ignores the complexity and structure that define real multiplayer environments. It is often argued that Sword Art Online gives the impression that its author did not deeply research certain aspects of online gaming systems or virtual world design, particularly in how large-scale multiplayer environments function. The series presents a framework that borrows heavily from MMO terminology and mechanics, but many of those elements are simplified or adjusted in ways that do not reflect how real online games are structured, balanced, or experienced by players. For example, systems that would normally require complex design considerations, such as progression balance, player economy, class interactions, and long-term meta development, are either streamlined or introduced without much exploration of their consequences. This can create a sense that the game world exists primarily to serve the narrative rather than operate as a believable, self-sustaining system. Sword Art Online also takes significant liberties with mythology and fantasy elements, but the bigger issue is not that it adapts mythological ideas loosely, it is that it often uses them in a shallow or inconsistent way. Mythological references and fantasy tropes are introduced more as aesthetic framing than as fully integrated systems within the world. When myth-inspired concepts appear, they are usually treated as isolated ideas tied to specific arcs or enemies rather than part of a coherent underlying mythology that shapes the rules of the world. This makes the setting feel more like a collection of borrowed motifs than a structured fantasy universe with internally consistent lore. As a result, mythological elements can feel interchangeable, where similar narrative roles could be filled by almost any concept without changing how the story functions. The issue is less about accuracy to real-world mythology and more about depth and integration. Strong fantasy writing typically builds its mythological influences into the core logic of the world, so they influence character behavior, world rules, and long-term narrative consequences. In Sword Art Online, those elements often remain surface level, which reduces their impact and makes them feel more decorative than foundational. A common frustration some viewers express around Sword Art Online is not just directed at the series itself, but at portions of its fanbase. There are fans who respond to criticism as if it is an attack on their personal taste rather than a discussion of the show's writing, pacing, or character work. This can make constructive critique difficult, since even fairly standard analysis of its weaknesses is sometimes dismissed outright or met with defensiveness instead of engagement. The result is a perception that parts of the fandom treat the series as beyond criticism, which creates a disconnect between viewers who see clear narrative flaws and those who insist the work is essentially flawless. That gap tends to amplify debate, because it shifts conversations away from the content itself and toward arguments about whether criticism is even valid in the first place. The SSERAFIM community feels noticeably more positive and balanced in the way it engages with the group and its content. Discussions around comebacks, performances, and releases tend to focus more on appreciation, analysis, and excitement for future work, rather than constant arguments or hostility toward outside opinions. Even when there is criticism, it is often framed around specific elements like production choices, choreography, or styling rather than turning into broader personal conflicts. There is also a stronger sense of shared enthusiasm around their growth as a group. Fans tend to track improvements across eras, from performance execution to musical direction, and treat those changes as part of a longer trajectory rather than isolated moments. That creates a more cohesive community identity centered on following the group's development over time. Compared to more divided or reactive fandom spaces, the SSERAFIM community generally comes across as more organized in discussion and less defined by constant internal conflict. It is not free from disagreements, but the overall tone leans more toward collective interest in the group's work rather than prolonged negativity or infighting. K-pop is often associated with intense fandom culture, and it can absolutely include toxicity, competition between groups, and overprotective behavior around idols. However, it is also a space with a large amount of active participation, discussion, and appreciation for performance, music production, and artistic presentation. Even with its flaws, the community is usually centered around engagement with the work itself, whether that is comebacks, choreography, live stages, or concept eras. Compared to that, discussions around sword art online can feel more fragmented and repetitive, often circling the same arguments about writing quality, pacing, and execution without much evolution in how those points are discussed. The conversation around it tends to polarize quickly, which can make the overall environment feel more combative than analytical. So even acknowledging that K-pop fandom culture has its own issues, it still often functions as a more active and content-driven community space. The focus remains on ongoing creative output and performance cycles, whereas discourse around sword art online can become stuck in long-running debates about its core flaws rather than expanding into new or varied forms of engagement. I prefer K-pop over sword art online any day because it offers a more consistent and engaging experience across multiple layers of content. With groups like SSERAFIM, there is always something actively evolving, whether it is new music, choreography, performances, or visual concepts tied to each comeback. The experience feels ongoing and dynamic, with regular releases that build on previous eras and keep the audience engaged in real time. Sword art online, in comparison, is a fixed narrative with a limited scope of engagement once the story is consumed. While it introduces an interesting premise, the execution does not always maintain consistent depth or momentum across its arcs, which makes it less compelling on a rewatch or long-term discussion level for some viewers. K-pop also offers a stronger sense of variety within a single group's discography and performance style, along with the ability to follow growth over time. That ongoing progression makes it feel more alive and interactive, whereas sword art online functions more as a completed story that does not evolve in the same way after it ends. If you are bored of sword art online, it can help to branch out into completely different forms of entertainment rather than staying within the same style of storytelling or expecting the same type of payoff. One option is exploring K-pop, which offers a much more dynamic and ongoing experience through music releases, performances, and evolving group concepts. With groups like SSERAFIM, for example, the appeal is not just in individual songs, but in how each comeback builds on a larger identity through choreography, visuals, and stage performance. It is a constantly updating cycle of content that gives you something new to engage with regularly, rather than a single fixed narrative that you experience once and revisit occasionally. Trying something like K-pop can also shift how you engage with media in general, since it emphasizes performance, production design, and long-term artistic development instead of linear storytelling. It is not a replacement for anime or narrative media, but it can offer a different kind of entertainment experience that feels more active and varied over time. Let us take a look at SSERAFIM's latest music video and analyze the deeper meaning behind its visual direction and narrative structure. At first glance, the MV presents a highly stylized performance-driven concept with intense choreography, sharp transitions, and striking visual contrasts that immediately emphasize control and momentum. The use of bold imagery and rapid scene shifts is not just aesthetic but reinforces the group's recurring theme of confronting fear and pressure through forward movement rather than avoidance. On a symbolic level, the video continues their broader conceptual identity of transformation under stress. The framing of movement, repetition, and collective formation suggests a focus on unity in the face of external distortion or internal anxiety. Even abstract visual elements are structured in a way that reflects progression, as if each scene represents a stage of emotional or psychological escalation that resolves through performance itself. The choreography also functions as narrative language rather than just accompaniment. Group synchronization, formation changes, and physical intensity mirror the idea of maintaining cohesion under strain, turning performance into a representation of resilience. Instead of relying on explicit storytelling, the MV communicates its themes through rhythm, motion, and controlled chaos, leaving interpretation to visual pattern recognition rather than dialogue or linear plot. Overall, the deeper meaning of the video is less about a single concrete storyline and more about reinforcing a consistent artistic identity. It emphasizes persistence, collective strength, and controlled intensity as central ideas, using audiovisual structure to convey emotion in a way that aligns with their established conceptual direction across eras. Afterwards, it can also be worth looking at other K-pop groups that bring different strengths, sounds, and performance styles, since the genre is fairly broad in how it approaches music and concept. Exploring other groups can highlight how varied production choices, choreography styles, and visual directions can be across the industry, even when artists operate within similar pop frameworks. For example, some groups lean more heavily into experimental sound design, while others focus on polished vocal arrangements, strong storytelling concepts, or high-energy performance styles. This variety makes it easier to find different interpretations of pop music depending on what you are looking for, whether that is more aggressive choreography-driven performances, softer melodic tracks, or concept-heavy comebacks with strong visual narratives. Expanding your perspective in this way also helps you better understand how different groups build their identities over time. Each one tends to develop its own recognizable approach to music and performance, and comparing those approaches can make the overall scene more interesting to follow.
SSERAFIM's Celebration feels like a direct sequel to Fearless. Fearless was all about moving forward without fear and choosing your own path no matter what people say. Celebration takes that same idea and pushes it even further, and the song makes that connection very clear. There's literally a line where they tell the listener, "Sing along, this is Fearless 2.0. The music video brings the idea of Celebration as a sequel to Fearless to life in a simple but powerful way. We follow a main character who's a zombie, but at first, he's hiding it. When he gets home, he takes off his human disguise and finally reveals his true self. In that moment, you can tell he feels safe because no one's watching. But that peace doesn't last long. The members come to his house, and the zombie immediately panics. He assumes they came to kill him, so he runs. It turns into this wild, over-the-top escape where he's running across the world trying to get away from them. He goes so far that he literally launches himself into space and lands on another planet. Finally, the members catch up to him. They just wanted to invite him to a creature party, a celebration of the strange. It's revealed that they're not normal either. They are monsters too. So instead of fear, it ends in acceptance. The zombie realizes he doesn't have to hide. He joins them and they all dance together. It ties perfectly back to the message of the song. What started as fear turns into confidence, and being different becomes something worth celebrating. Celebration is all about celebrating the parts of yourself that don't fit in. It focuses on the things people might usually hide, the traits that feel different or strange, and turns them into something worth being proud of. Instead of trying to blend in or meet expectations, the song leans into standing out. It's about owning who you are without hesitation and without fear of how others might see you. That idea connects directly back to their earlier message. However, it feels more complete, like they've fully accepted it. That's why it feels like a direct continuation of Fearless, picking up right after those first steps have already been taken. There's a stronger feeling of certainty, more comfort in your own skin, and a sense of actually enjoying who or what you've become. That shift from pushing forward to fully owning your identity is what makes Celebration the true next chapter. The lyrics to You and Me Now We're Reborn show that this isn't just about small changes, it's about a complete transformation. Their previous self, the one that felt pressure or doubt, is gone, and what's left is something new. The message is shared. It's not just about them, it's you and me. It draws the listener into that same experience, so that one line really captures the core of the song. The lines, "It's time to say goodbye to when I was fearless. No fakes, no more. Congrats to the new me who took on uncertainty," are a turning point in the story the song is telling. Saying goodbye to being fearless doesn't mean rejecting it completely. It's like they've outgrown that earlier version of themselves. No fakes, no more adds to that idea too. It sounds like a decision to stop holding back or hiding parts of yourself just to get through. There's a stronger sense of honesty and authenticity. And then, congrats to the new me who took on uncertainty really ties it all together. Instead of waiting for someone else to validate the journey, they're recognizing it themselves. They didn't avoid uncertainty, they faced it. And because of that, they've turned into someone new. The lines, "Hold scarred hands and keep steppin', you know we found each other in the fear. Now for my sisters here," bring a really emotional layer to the song's message. "Hold scarred hands and keep steppin" paints a picture of people who have been through things together. The scarred hands suggest past struggles, mistakes, or pain, but instead of hiding them, they're holding onto each other and still moving forward. It's about support, even with past wounds still there. "You know we found each other in the fear" makes that connection even stronger. It implies that what brought them together wasn't comfort or ease, but shared uncertainty. They met in a place where things felt scary or unfamiliar, and instead of being separated by that, it connected them. Then, Now for My Sisters Here shifts the focus outward. It's a dedication, like they're acknowledging the people beside them who went through the same journey. It turns the message into something collective, not just personal. So when everything is taken into account, this song is a continuation of a story that began with Fearless and has now reached a new stage. The lyrics, the visuals, and even the concept all point to the same idea. That's what makes Celebration so powerful. It's not just a sequel in sound, it's a sequel in meaning. Make sure to like and sub for more awesome K-pop content.
Why do Baby Monster songs feel like they hit differently the moment they begin? Not just catchy, but like there's real weight behind every second of sound. Like the music grabs you before your brain even has time to process what's happening. The beat lands, the energy locks in, and suddenly you're already pulled into it without even realizing when it started. A big part of it comes down to what their music is built around. A lot of K-pop songs prioritize melody first. You remember the tune, the chorus, the vocals. But most Baby Monster songs are built around impact. You feel the beat before you even process what's happening. That's not random either. It reflects the signature style of YG Entertainment. Another big reason comes down to their vocal delivery. Lines aren't just sung cleanly or softly. Words are often given a bit of edge that gives their vocals an assertive tone. It's about sounding commanding. What also stands out is the variation between members. That contrast keeps the song dynamic. They hold on to a certain level of presence. That means the song never fully settles. That approach fits perfectly with the kind of music they're making under YG Entertainment. The goal isn't just to showcase vocal ability. It's to make every line feel like it carries weight. That's why their songs feel so consistent in energy from start to finish. Another key reason why Baby Monster's songs feel so dramatic is the rapping. The rap sections don't feel like a break from the song. They feel like a continuation of its intensity. That comes down to both delivery and style. The members bring a very sharp, controlled energy to their verses. Their tone is confident and aggressive without sounding forced, and their flow tends to be rhythm-focused rather than overly complex. That makes the rap feel tight and exciting instead of overwhelming. The goal isn't just to impress, it's to elevate the energy of the track. Because of that, the rap doesn't feel separate from the rest of the music. It blends into the structure in a way that keeps the energy consistent, which is a big reason the songs feel so cohesive and hard-hitting overall. Their song structure also plays a huge role. There's usually a clear contrast between sections. A smoother, melodic verse followed by a sudden, hard-hitting chorus. That tension builds up and then releases all at once. Then there's the way they handle hooks. A lot of people think their choruses are too simple or repetitive, but that's actually what makes them stick. They use short phrases and rhythmic repetition. That's what makes the song replayable. You can almost predict where choreography would hit just by listening. The pauses create space for gestures. The drops align with impact moments in choreography, and the repetition reinforces movements that are meant to be memorable on stage. This is part of a broader performance-first approach often associated with YG Entertainment, where songs are designed not only to be heard, but to be visually experienced. Instead of treating choreography as something added later, the music itself feels like it already contains the blueprint for it. Because of that, the effect of the songs often grows after you see them performed. What might feel abstract or purely audio-based at first suddenly gains structure once paired with movement. The sound and visuals are tightly connected. Baby Monster songs have already garnered hundreds of millions of plays and views across various platforms in a very short amount of time. For a group still early in their career, that level of streaming is significant. These numbers aren't just driven by initial hype. They continue to grow over time, suggesting that listeners are coming back to the music rather than just checking it out once. That kind of sustained streaming usually points to strong replay value. What do you think about Baby Monster? Do you like their music, or are you still deciding how you feel about their sound and style? Curious which song stood out the most, and whether the group's confident, performance-driven approach works for you or not. Personally, I really enjoy their songs. Sheesh would have to be my favorite so far. There's a distinct combination of energy and structure, especially how the different sections build into each other and keep the momentum going. It's the kind of track that gets better with repeat listens, and it really highlights what Baby Monster does well in terms of style and delivery. Make sure to subscribe for other K-pop content like this.
What feels different about Islet now? Because if you listen to their earlier songs, the tone is softer. A lot of it centers around wanting attention, wanting to be chosen, or figuring out feelings in the moment. There's a sense of waiting, like the song is building towards something that hasn't fully happened yet. But then you hear "It's Me," and that feeling is completely gone. This time, there's no hesitation, no uncertainty, no waiting. The message is direct. Who's your bias? I'm your bias. It's not a question, it's a statement. And that one shift changes everything about how the song feels. There's no build-up. The song starts by asserting something. Instead of hoping to be chosen, it acts like the choice has already been made. That's what makes it feel so much more confident than their previous releases. The energy isn't built slowly or earned over time. It's there immediately, and it stays consistent the entire way through. Compare that to Magnetic, where the opening lines are, "Baby, I'm just trying to play it cool, but I just can't hide that I want you." Right away, there's a sense of holding back, of trying to manage feelings. It's softer, more vulnerable, and built around wanting someone rather than claiming anything. Even in Cherish, which sounds more confident on the surface with opening lines like, "You know what? Not even God can stop me. I'll like you," the focus is still on emotion and desire. It's about how strongly they feel, not about controlling the situation or defining the outcome. That's what makes the intro of "It's Me" stand out so much. It skips past all of that. There's no hesitation, no emotional buildup, no sense of waiting. It establishes identity right away. A big part of that comes from repetition. There's no room for doubt because the song never creates any. And that confidence isn't just in the lyrics, it's in the attitude behind them. It doesn't feel like they're trying to convince someone. It feels like they've already decided the outcome. That's what makes this song feel like such a shift. It's not just a different sound, it's a different role. Earlier songs felt like they were waiting to be picked. This one feels like they're doing the picking, and that change says a lot about where the group is going. It shows a move away from uncertainty, not just asking for attention, but claiming it. In the chorus, "Who's your bias? I'm your bias" is also stated again and again. Instead of introducing new ideas or emotions, the chorus locks into one idea and refuses to let it go, like the song is trying to make its identity unavoidable. It feels confident, even self-assured, as if the answer is already decided. The chorus doubles down on the idea that there's no competition or doubt. It's telling you it already knows who your bias is. Other lines in the song also enhance just how confident the members sound, especially moments like, "I'm irreplaceable, more precious than Prada." This isn't just a casual flex, it's a clear statement of self-worth that places identity above status symbols or comparison. What stands out is how direct the wording is. Irreplaceable removes the idea of competition entirely, while comparing themselves to a luxury brand like Prada emphasizes value in a way that feels bold and deliberate. These kinds of lines add another layer to the song's overall message. They present themselves as already established in their identity, fully aware of their worth. It's also interesting how the timing around this song aligns closely with the buzz around the release of The Devil Wears Prada 2. It almost feels intentional, even if it isn't. The line, "Hey, just say I'm your fave," also adds another layer to the song's confidence. There's no emotional buildup or uncertainty. That sense of ease reinforces the overall tone of the song, where confidence isn't something that needs to be earned or proven, but something that's already there. In the context of the rest of the track, this line fits perfectly. It continues the theme of self-assurance and directness, where attention isn't chased but expected. As you can see, with songs like "It's Me" as well as earlier songs like "Not Cute Anymore," the group seems to be gradually shifting away from a more vulnerable and uncertain image. What did you think of "It's Me"? Did the song work for you, or did it feel a bit unexpected compared to their earlier releases? Also, do you think this transition into a more confident and assertive style is working for the group? Or do the earlier, softer and cuter songs feel more appealing? Curious whether this shift adds something new and exciting to the group's identity, or if the original tone felt more natural and memorable. Personally, "It's Me" stood out as really catchy. The energy of the track feels consistent from start to finish. The music video also adds to that experience. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe for other amazing K-pop content like this.
Crescendo might just sound like another dramatic, emotion-focused track built around powerful vocals. But for listeners who are familiar with Blue Valentine, something about it feels similar. Not as a direct sequel or an official storyline continuation, but as if both songs are capturing different stages of the same emotional experience. One leans into the instability and pain of a love that keeps breaking and returning, while the other feels like that same emotion growing louder and harder to control. This video explores why Crescendo can be seen as a spiritual successor to Blue Valentine, and how both tracks seem to represent 2 points on the same emotional arc. To understand that connection, it helps to start with Blue Valentine. That song is about a relationship that's unstable and repetitive. It moves through cycles of conflict and reconnection, where love feels both addictive and damaging at the same time. Although the lyrics recognize the pain, there's still a pull that keeps bringing both people back together. The emotion feels heavy and conflicted, like knowing something is bad but not being able to let it go. In contrast, Crescendo shifts that emotional state into something more overwhelming and less controlled. Instead of focusing on breaking apart and returning, the feeling becomes something that builds continuously. The emotions don't cycle, they escalate. Love isn't something that's endured in fragments anymore, but something that grows louder and stronger until it takes over completely. The musical metaphor of a crescendo fits that idea well, with feelings rising in intensity and becoming impossible to contain. Looking at both songs together, the connection starts to form. One is about surviving the push and pull of a difficult love, while the other feels like being completely overtaken by emotion. Because of that, the two songs don't function as a direct sequel, but they do feel like parts of the same emotional arc, where love moves from conflict into full emotional escalation. What makes Blue Valentine and Crescendo interesting isn't just the sound or the lyrics, but the emotional direction they seem to trace. Both songs show how love constantly shifts and never stays in one state. Another important part of the connection between the two songs is how their music structure itself reflects their emotional themes, not just the lyrics. Blue Valentine is built around a kind of emotional push and pull structure. That constant shift creates a feeling of instability, almost like the song itself is breathing in cycles, which reinforces the emotional theme of repetition, relapse, and return. Crescendo uses a very different structural approach. Instead of resetting between emotional states, the song feels like it's continuously building from start to finish. The transitions feel less like resets and more like steps upward, which matches the idea of a crescendo in music, where sound gradually increases without breaking the momentum. The structure of Blue Valentine is built around cycles, which fits its theme of unstable love that repeats itself. The listener experiences emotional highs and lows in loops, almost like being stuck in the same pattern over and over. Instead of going back to zero emotionally, Crescendo removes that cyclical feeling and replaces it with escalation. It's not that one song continues the story of the other, but that they represent two different ways the same emotional intensity can be expressed. Even the structure reflects that shift. Maybe that's why the connection feels so natural, even if it isn't intentional. The group has a way of portraying emotion in extremes. So whether or not Blue Valentine and Crescendo were meant to be connected, they still feel like two parts of a larger emotional picture. What are your thoughts on Crescendo? Do you see any connection between it and Blue Valentine, or do they feel like they're exploring completely different ideas to you? Personally, I found both the song and the music video to be really great. There's something about it that makes it instantly recognizable. The music video adds even more to that impression, creating a world that feels imaginative and a bit surreal. If you enjoyed the breakdown, make sure to like and subscribe for more awesome K-pop content like this in the future.
You probably remember when NMIXX released OO and how impossible it was to escape that moment. Everyone was trying to process what they had just heard in real time, and right in the middle of all that noise, one line somehow stuck in people's heads. Check out Popcorn and Zero Coke. Not the chorus, not even the beat switch. That one line, out of everything in a song already packed with sudden changes and unexpected moments, somehow that became the thing everyone latched onto. People were quoting it and turning it into memes, even if they didn't care about the song itself. So how did a random snack combo end up becoming such a recognizable line? And why did this line, out of everything in the song, stick so hard? Let's get into it. First, it's just weirdly specific in a way that you don't hear very often in K-pop lyrics. Popcorn and Zero Coke sounds like product placement, and it is given the group's collaboration with Coca-Cola at the time, but it's literally just a normal snack combo. It's something you'd buy at a movie theater. There's nothing particularly deep or profound about it, and that's exactly why it stands out so much in a song like this. Most K-pop lyrics go for something dramatic. This line does the exact opposite. It zooms in on something extremely specific and drops it right in the middle of a high-energy track. And because it's so simple, it sticks immediately. You don't need multiple listens to remember it. That's why even people who didn't like the song or didn't fully get what the group was going for still walked away remembering remembering that line. Another big reason it blew up is how completely out of nowhere it feels. The song is already jumping between different sounds and moods, so when you're listening for the first time, you're kind of just trying to keep up with everything that's happening. And then you suddenly get hit with popcorn and zero Coke. That contrast is what makes it land so hard. It feels like it wandered in from a completely different context, and that moment of confusion is exactly what makes it memorable. In a song that's already unpredictable, that line somehow manages to stand out even more because it's unexpected in a totally different way. That immediate "wait, what?" moment is basically the perfect ingredient for K-pop meme culture. A lyric that disrupts expectations becomes something people replay, isolate, and quote because it creates a shared reaction. It's not just about the line itself anymore, it's about the collective experience of hearing it for the first time and doing a double take. In online communities, that shared confusion quickly turns into humor. People start treating the line like a punchline, turning it into captions, edits, fake ads, and reaction memes. Moreover, the line being in English made it instantly more shareable across the global K-pop fandom, especially because a large portion of that audience is already based in English-speaking countries or uses English as a shared second language online. When a catchy or funny phrase appears in English inside a K-pop track, it reduces the entry barrier for casual listeners. Even people who don't understand the rest of the lyrics can immediately latch onto that specific moment, repeat it, meme it, or quote it on social media. K-pop increasingly mixes Korean and English not just for style, but for global circulation. In a song that might otherwise feel dense or unfamiliar, those lines act like a foothold, giving listeners something recognizable to return to and helping the track stick in their minds long after it ends. Once a line becomes recognizable, it can take on a life of its own outside the song. It's a similar reason why Mark's rap verse in Jopping became such a huge meme as well. Because it was delivered entirely in English, it was instantly accessible to a global audience, which is exactly what gives moments like that their staying power online. What really pushed it even further is that the members themselves seem fully aware of how big the line became. You can find plenty of moments where the members reference the line on social media, whether they're poking fun at it, casually bringing it up, or playing into the meme in a self-aware way. That kind of acknowledgement matters because it tells fans, yeah, we see it too. And once the idols themselves start participating, it gives the meme a second life. It stops being something people are laughing at and starts becoming something everyone is in on together. Fans feel more encouraged to keep using it, sharing it, remixing it, because now it feels like an inside joke that even the group is part of. At that point, the line isn't just viral anymore. It's part of the group's identity, whether it was meant to be or not. Later on, the group worked with Coca-Cola again in 2024 through the K-Wave Zero Sugar campaign, which was part of a broader promotional project featuring multiple groups from JYP Entertainment. Haewon also appeared in a Coca-Cola commercial, which makes the whole thing feel like it's come full circle. The member associated with that viral moment was now literally fronting a Coca-Cola ad. And if you're wondering why OO sounds so unusual, that's largely because it was designed that way from the start. The track is built around the group's mix pop concept, which intentionally stitches together contrasting genres inside a single song rather than sticking to one consistent style. The members clarified that the song was essentially conceived as a mashup of two full-length ideas during its development. So the strange feeling isn't a flaw so much as the point, reflecting the group's experimental identity from their debut. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more awesome K-pop content. Kiss of Life's Midas Touch MV is full of subtle references and hidden symbolism. The seashells and hearts allude to Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of love, beauty, and desire, who's closely associated with the sea and often symbolized by shells, reinforcing the theme of romance and allure. The set design features spider webs. In Greek mythology, spiders are closely tied to the story of Arachne, a mortal weaver who challenged the goddess Athena and was ultimately transformed into a spider as punishment. She was condemned to weave forever. This member has blonde hair. Fans who are used to seeing her with black hair will immediately notice the change. In the behind-the-scenes video, she explained that she deliberately changed her hair to blonde to better match the Midas touch concept. That decision ties directly into the origins of the phrase itself. In Greek mythology, King Midas was granted a wish that let him turn anything he touched into gold. The set design in this scene features peacock imagery, which adds another mythological reference. In Greek mythology, peacocks are closely associated with Hera, the queen of the gods and the goddess of marriage. According to myth, Hera placed the eyes of the hundred-eyed giant Argus onto the peacock's feathers, which is why their tails are covered in those distinctive eye-like patterns. Including peacock imagery in the set design could be emphasizing that same mix of beauty and tension. On the surface, it's luxurious and eye-catching, but underneath, it hints at something more complex. The line, "Hey baby, I'm so toxic," along with the motorcycle scene, serves as a clear reference to Toxic by Britney Spears. In the MV for that song, Spears is also riding a motorcycle with a guy. Coincidentally, both motorcycle scenes in the two MVs begin at almost the exact same moment, around the 1 minute and 28-second mark. The coins in this scene feature a woman with snakes in her hair, evoking Medusa from Greek mythology. She had snakes for hair and the power to turn anyone who looked at her directly into stone. Her story is often seen as a cautionary tale about power, transformation, and the consequences of angering the gods. Interestingly, the MV seems to merge the concepts of the Midas touch and turning people to stone. When one of the members touches a guy, he turns to stone instead of gold. The fact that the coins are golden also ties directly into the Midas touch theme. Gold has always been a symbol of wealth, power, and desire, and in this MV, it reinforces the idea of something irresistible but dangerous. Some of the members are eating strawberries, which were considered sacred to Aphrodite because of their heart-like shape and vibrant red color, symbolizing passion and desire. One member is also shown holding a pearl necklace, and pearls have long been closely associated with Aphrodite as well due to her connection to the sea and her birth from foam. There are numerous snakes throughout the MV. In Greek mythology, snakes are powerful and complex symbols, often associated with transformation, wisdom, and protection. They were especially significant to Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warfare, who's frequently depicted with serpents as emblems of intelligence and strategic power. During the bridge section, each member delivers a playful nod to their individual artistry by directly referencing the titles of their solo songs from their debut mini-album. The lyrics weave in the words sugarcoat, play love games, kitty cat, and countdown. This creates a clever interplay between the group's collective performance and their personal musical identities, highlighting both unity and individuality within the song. That concludes the breakdown of this MV. Any details or references not mentioned can be shared in the comments for discussion. Which K-pop MV should be analyzed next? Leave a suggestion and it could become the focus of a future video. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more content. Kepler's Wadada MV is full of hidden details, symbolism, and visual storytelling. The MV opens with one of the members looking up at the sky through a telescope. At first, it might seem like a simple aesthetic choice, but it becomes much more meaningful when you connect it to the group's identity. Kepler takes its name from Johann S. Kepler, the astronomer who discovered the laws of planetary motion. With that in mind, the telescope isn't just a random prop. It directly ties into themes of exploration, discovery, and looking beyond what's immediately visible. Just like Kepler studied the movement of planets, the members are symbolically searching for something greater, whether that's their path, their identity, or their future. It sets the tone for the entire MV. In the background, there's a clock set precisely to 9 o'clock. It's a small detail, but the exact timing feels intentional rather than random. The number 9 directly corresponds to the 9 original members of Kepler, making the clock a subtle way of visually representing the group as a whole. The number 9 also has a connection to space through the planets. For many years, the solar system was considered to have 9 planets, including Pluto, and each planet follows its own orbit yet forms part of a larger interconnected system. This mirrors the structure of Kepler, where each member has a distinct role and personality, but together they form a complete harmonious unit. Furthermore, in numerology, the number 9 represents completion and endings, transformation and growth, and a higher sense of purpose. It's the last single-digit number, which gives it a sense of coming full circle. That's perfect for a debut group stepping into the spotlight. One of the members is wearing a shirt with a star on it. This is a small but deliberate detail that reinforces the space theme running throughout the MV. By including this visual, the MV keeps the celestial motif consistent, reminding viewers that the group's concept isn't just about music. It's about reaching for something bigger, moving through a universe of possibilities, and aligning each member as part of a larger whole. There are 2 purple planets which resemble the logo of Girls' Planet 999, the reality competition show that formed Kepler. It's a reference to the group's origins, connecting their identity back to the show where they came together. The planet has a ring. These form when bits of rock, ice, and dust get pulled into orbit around a planet. If that material gets too close, the planet's gravity breaks it apart. The pieces then spread out and circle the planet, creating a thin, flat ring. Over time, more debris can join in, making the ring larger and more visible. In the background, there's graffiti that reads First Impact. First Impact is the title of Kepler's debut extended play, so including it in the MV serves as a nod to their beginnings. Graffiti featuring both Wadada and Kepler can be spotted in the background as well, adding another layer of intentional detail to the scene. These visual cues do more than decorate the set. They act as direct references to the song and the group, reinforcing the identity of both the MV and the performers themselves. The background colors are lavender and yellow. These aren't just random choices. They're the official colors of Kepler's fandom Keplian. Lavender represents creativity, wisdom, and imagination. It's a color that evokes curiosity and reflection. Yellow, on the other hand, symbolizes energy, optimism, and insight. It reflects the enthusiasm and passion of the Keplian community. There's another clock visible in this scene, and just like the first one, it's set precisely to 9 o'clock. The repetition of this detail feels deliberate, not accidental, and emphasizes the symbolism of the number 9 throughout the MV. That concludes the breakdown of Kepler's Wadada MV. Which K-pop MV do you want to see analyzed next? Drop your suggestions in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown and found the hidden details in Wadada interesting, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Red Velvet's Bad Boy MV is packed with subtle details and hidden references. One member is shown reading a book with a French title. It roughly translates to "This is not about lips," which immediately adds a layer of intrigue to the scene. The phrase is a clear reference to a painting called The Treachery of Images that depicts a realistic image of a pipe, accompanied by the words "This is not a pipe" written in French beneath it. At first it seems contradictory, but the idea is straightforward. The painting isn't an actual pipe, it's only a representation representation of one. It highlights the difference between what we see and what something really is. When you bring that idea into the Bad Boy MV, the title of the book starts to feel much more intentional. It's a reminder that what we're seeing is constructed. Moreover, on the cover of the book, you can see the imprint of lipstick marks. When you connect this back to the title of the book, it becomes even more interesting. The title says it's not about the lips, yet the cover is literally marked by it. That contrast creates a tension between what's being stated and what's being shown. The lipstick imprint is also placed vertically rather than in the usual horizontal way, which makes it stand out even more. Instead of a simple kiss mark, it subtly resembles another set of lips, giving the image a more suggestive and layered meaning. This also doesn't seem to be a real, existing book, which makes the detail feel even more intentional. Instead of being a random prop, it was likely created specifically for the MV, meaning every element of it, from the title to the cover design, was carefully chosen. There are mannequins in the background of the scene, which feels like a very deliberate callback to Red Velvet's earlier track Dum Dum. In that song, there's a line that translates to "like a mannequin, everything is so awkward," tying mannequins to stiffness, artificiality, and a kind of forced, unnatural performance. One of the members is typing on an old-fashioned typewriter. Then the camera zooms in on her pressing the V key. The letter V immediately stands out as a direct reference to the Velvet side of Red Velvet's dual concept. Their discography is often split between the brighter, quirky Red side and the darker, more mature Velvet side. Bad Boy sits firmly in that latter category. By isolating the letter V, the MV is labeling itself, reinforcing that identity in an intentional way. The letter V is also the Roman numeral for 5, which is especially fitting given that there are 5 members in Red Velvet. All of the members are shown reading the same book in this scene, creating the impression that they're engaging with something meaningful. But on closer inspection, the pages are completely blank. There's no text at all. This detail reinforces the recurring idea of representation versus reality. The members appear to be reading, but in reality, there's nothing there. The scene demonstrates that not everything presented to us should be taken at face value. One of the members is wearing a shirt printed with the numbers 314159265, which might seem random at first glance, but they're actually the first 9 digits of pi. One of the members is wearing a sweater with the word meow printed across it. Coincidentally, meow is also the name of another K-pop group. At the same time, the word itself carries meaning on its own. Meow is often associated with something cute or harmless, but it can also be used in a more teasing or confident way depending on the context. That duality fits really well with Red Velvet's concept, especially in Bad Boy, where softness and edge exist side by side. That wraps up the breakdown of Red Velvet's Bad Boy MV. Which K-pop MV should be analyzed next? Drop some suggestions in the comments below. If this video was enjoyable or offered new insights into the Bad Boy MV, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Irene's Biggest Fan MV is a visual feast full of hidden details, Easter eggs, and surprising moments. This video breaks down everything that makes it so unforgettable. The phone is a pink color, which isn't just a random choice. Pink is Irene's designated color in Red Velvet, so including it here is a nod to her identity within the group. The Metro number 8014 is a reference to August 2014, the month and year when Red Velvet officially debuted. Including this number in the scene feels like a quiet tribute to the group's beginnings, tying Irene's solo moment back to where everything started. The time shown, 3:29 p.m., is another small detail that carries a lot of meaning. The numbers 329 are a direct reference to Irene's birthday, March 29th. It's a way of placing her identity into the scene without making it too obvious. Details like this make the MV feel more personal, almost like a signature hidden in plain sight. Moreover, the view count shown at 329K is another clever nod to Irene's birthday. The number 329 once again points to March 29th, reinforcing the personal theme woven throughout the MV. Moments like this reward fans who pay close attention and make the video feel more thoughtfully put together. It mentions that this is Irene's solo debut, which might seem a bit confusing at first. She actually made her solo debut earlier with the extended play Like a Flower back in November 2024. However, this release marks her first full-length studio album, so the wording still makes sense in that context. It can be seen as a new chapter or a bigger step in her solo career, highlighting a more complete and fully developed project. In that way, calling it a solo debut feels less like a mistake and more like a way to emphasize the scale and importance of this moment. There's a person wearing a bunny costume, which feels like a direct reference to Hong Hong, the bunny character from Irene's version of Red Velvet's FanCon merch. It connects the MV to Irene's personal fan identity, since each member had their own representative character. Including a bunny here adds a playful and familiar element for fans who recognize it. The news broadcast states that it's Monday, 30th of March, which matches the release date of the song and MV. That detail adds a meta layer to the video, blending the world of the MV with real life. By including the exact release date in the scene, it makes the moment feel more current and intentional, like the events of the video are happening in real time alongside the audience watching it, making the MV feel more connected to its own debut. It also points out that Irene is the ultimate visual, and that description really fits. She's not only the official visual of Red Velvet, but also one of the most recognized female visuals in K-pop as a whole. Over the years, her visuals have become a big part of her identity, often setting trends and drawing attention both within the fandom and beyond. Including that title in the MV feels intentional. Irene's logo is designed as a heart shape that cleverly incorporates the letters I and B. These letters represent her initials. Since her full English name is Irene Bay, it makes the logo feel personal and unique to her. The heart shape adds a touch of warmth and approachability, reflecting her connection with fans, while the initials make it instantly recognizable as Irene's symbol. Details like this show how much thought goes into her branding, blending personality, style, and symbolism all in one. That wraps up the breakdown of Irene's biggest fan music video. Did you notice anything interesting that wasn't mentioned in the video? If so, share your findings in the comments. If you enjoyed this analysis and want to see more breakdowns, make sure to like this video and subscribe for all the latest content. NMIX's Tick Tick MV is full of details that are easy to miss on a first watch. The members position their arms in a very specific formation, and if you map that shape onto a clock face, it lines up perfectly with 2/22, which is a reference to the group's debut date, February 22nd. It goes even further than just the debut date. In numerology, 222 is associated with ideas like alignment, harmony, balance, and being on the right path. And if you're thinking that the whole clock connection might be a bit of a stretch, the MV itself actually backs it up immediately. There's a direct reference to a clock in the lyrics. That placement feels way too deliberate to ignore. In fact, the title Tick Tick, along with the phrase repeated throughout the chorus, is meant to mimic the ticking sound of a clock. The ticking theme also carries a deeper meaning. It symbolizes the constant passage of time and reminds listeners that opportunities won't wait forever. Just like a clock that never stops, the song seems to be urging both the group and the audience to act decisively and seize the moment before it passes. The money in this scene isn't US dollars. The bills are Brazilian, and that detail matters, emphasizing the Brazilian setting of the MV. Instead of using generic props, they intentionally chose currency that reflects the setting, which adds a layer of authenticity to the visual. One small but stylish detail is that one of the members is wearing a Stussy tank top. At first, it might just look like a casual outfit choice, but it's a globally recognized streetwear brand connected to skate, surf, and hip-hop culture. Another member stands out by wearing a Supreme skirt, which adds a bold, streetwear edge to the scene. Supreme is an iconic global brand, known for its connections to skate, hip-hop, and youth culture, so including it in the MV signals trend-savvy style and modern coolness. At first, the text on this sign might seem like a playful background detail, but it carries some extra flavor for viewers familiar with Brazilian culture. The phrase translates to king of pork leg. It's a classic Brazilian dish that's especially popular during festive occasions like Christmas or New Year's. In Brazil, the phrase is often used by eateries or food stalls that are known for serving top-quality roasted pork. One playful fashion moment is a skirt featuring Tick Tick worn by a member, cleverly connecting the outfit to the song's title. There's a scene where Pablo transforms into a giant kaiju. The effect is both dramatic and fun, giving the scene a real cinematic energy. Interestingly, there's a coincidental pop culture parallel, the climactic battle in Godzilla Kong. The new empire also takes place in Brazil, with the titans clashing amid iconic cityscapes. While it's probably not intentional, the visual similarity is striking. That wraps up this breakdown of the Tick Tick MV. Did you catch any interesting details or Easter eggs that weren't mentioned in this video? If so, drop them in the comments. Also, which K-pop MV do you want to see analyzed next? Leave your suggestions down below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future breakdowns.